Hello everybody, this is David. Welcome back to my channel. Well, this video is the next in our series, Where Did the Bible Come From? In our last video we started to look at how the Old Testament canon was decided. In this video we're going to be looking at, we're going to go into a little bit more detail. I hope you'll be interested. I'll try and make it interesting for you. But let's see how far we get. So we're going to be looking at what's known as the Old Testament Apocrypha and pseudepigrapha. Now these are two Greek words, and we are going to be looking at some other Greek words. Now why are we looking at Greek? Well, Greek was the original world language in the way that English is today. So Greek was used for a long time, and lots of things were written in Greek. So sometimes we need to translate or interpret what a Greek word says into English so we can understand it today. So the Apocrypha and pseudepigrapha are what's known as spurious writings. They're writings that, or books, well, let's just say this, that what is the issue with them? The issue is that many books were written during the Old Testament era. Now, which ones are canon and which ones are not? In other words, how do we classify the many writings of the Old Testament era? How do we decide which ones are supposed to be in the Bible and which ones are not? So the Apocrypha and the pseudepigrapha are a collection of those books that are, if I can put it this way, have been written spuriously. And they're very often written by anonymous writers, but they are attributed to other writers. In other words, the writers who have written them have pretended to be somebody else. They've pretended to be either the patriarchs or the apostles, and so that's not good. So we need to work out which books actually belong in the Bible. So it has to be said that not all books written during the Old Testament era are scripture. So how do we decide? How do we classify the different books? Well, there's four ways that we can categorize them. We can be classified into four categories. Now, I'm going to use the Greek word first and then the English translation. So firstly, there's the books that are homologoumena, which are books that are accepted by all. Then secondly, there's the books that are antilegomena, that is, books disputed by some. Then there is thirdly the pseudepigrapha, which is books that are rejected by all. And fourthly, there's the Apocrypha, which are books accepted by some, and we'll see who has accepted those books and who hasn't as we go through the video. So let's have a look firstly at the homologoumena, which are the books accepted by all. Now these are books which once they were accepted into the canon were not subsequently questioned or disputed. They were recognized not only by early generations, but by succeeding generations as well. These books comprise the 34 of the 39 books in the Protestant Old Testament. That's the Bible that we have today. The only books that are not part of the homologoumena in the Protestant Old Testament are the Song of Solomon, the Book of Ecclesiastes, Esther, Ezekiel, and Proverbs. The antilegomena, or the books that are disputed by some, now these are the several books that were initially and ultimately considered canonical, but were at one time disputed by some of the Jewish community. So the 5 canonical books of the Old Testament fall into this category. Disputed by some. So let's have a look at what those books were. Firstly, it was the Song of Solomon. So the school of Shammai which were operated in the 1st century AD, as well as some others, expressed doubt about the canonicity of the Song of Solomon. Now, the basic reason was that the book seemed sensual to some. The view of Rabbi Akiba ben Joseph, who lived between 50 AD and 132 AD, however, prevailed, as is evidence in his statement. And this is quite a good quote actually. God forbid, no man in Israel ever disputed about the Song of Songs that it does not render the hands unclean, i.e. is not canonical. So the book of Ecclesiastes, one of the main objections to Ecclesiastes was that it was skeptical and that its talk of life being vanity was not fitting of Holy Scripture. The doubt about the book, however, is more of an interpretive issue than one concerning inspiration. The thrust of the book is that life lived apart from God is vanity. That is why at the conclusion of the book, Solomon can say in Ecclesiastes chapter 12 verses 13 and 14, "Fear God and keep his commandments, for God will bring every act to judgment." So as with the other Antilogema, this book too was accepted as canon. How about the Book of Esther? Esther was doubted by some because the name of God is absent from the book. People wondered how a book that did not mention God could be inspired. God's sovereignty and providence, however, is prevalent throughout the book, as he protected his people from extermination. Josephus and the Mishnah cite Esther as scripture. So the Book of Ezekiel. This book was questioned by some because of its apparent anti-Mosaical teachings. The school of Shammai thought that the teaching of the book was not in harmony with the Mosaic law, and that the first 10 chapters exhibited a tendency towards Gnosticism. Gnosticism is hidden knowledge, or knowledge that I know that's been revealed to me but you don't know. But no specific examples have been given to show that Ezekiel contradicts the Mosaic law or that its chapters tend towards Gnosticism. So evidence in favour of the canonicity of Ezekiel is so ample and so early that the book is something of an embarrassment to those who hold the common view about the date of the closing of the canon. And we got that last statement from Roger Beckwith from his book, The Old Testament Canon in the New Testament Church and its Background in Early Judaism. That's a great title, isn't it? So, fifthly, the Book of Proverbs. Some claim that Proverbs was not inspired because it supposedly contradicts itself. For example, Proverbs 26 verses 4 and 5. Let's have a look at that now, shall we? Proverbs 26 verses 4 and 5. Let's see what they say. Proverbs 26 verse 4 and 5. Let's see what they say. Proverbs 26 verses 4 and 5. They say, "Do not answer a fool according to his folly, lest you also be like him. Answer a fool according to his folly, lest he be wise in his own eyes." Very interesting. Okay. Many rabbis, though, claim that when interpreted properly, Proverbs did not contradict itself. Support for Proverbs from the Pharisaic, Essene and Christian community strongly vouch for its canonicity. So what about the pseudepigrapha? That is the books rejected by all. So the term pseudepigrapha means writings attributed to fictitious authors. They are books that are clearly spurious and inauthentic, or false in other words. Many of these works claim to have been written by biblical authors, but were in reality written between 200 BC and 200 AD, a 400-year period. Most of these books are made up of dreams, visions, and revelations in the apocalyptic style of Ezekiel, Daniel, and Zechariah. How many are there? Well, the actual number of pseudepigrapha books is unknown. Now, according to Bruce Metzger in his book, The Apocrypha and Pseudepigrapha in the Expositor's Bible Commentary, where we read the number, and I'm going to quote, the number of Jewish and Jewish Christian pseudepigraphic writings must once have been great. Jewish legends ascribes to Enoch no fewer than 366 such works. And 2nd Esdras, chapter 14, verse 46, which is not a book in the Bible, by the way, tells of 70 secret books that are discriminated from or set apart or different from the 24 canonical ones. End of quote. Now, some researchers of the pseudepigrapha, that's quite a hard word to say actually if you're not used to saying it, have listed more than 200 titles, but many of these no longer exist. So for our purposes, 18 are worthy of mention, and we've got this list taken from Geisler and Nix's book. So let's have a look at what these 18 are. The Book of Jubilee, which is a legendary book, which is a midrashic expansion of biblical history from creation to the first Passover. There's the Letter of Aristeas, which is another legendary book. In other words, it's written in legend style, fable style. Supposedly an eyewitness account of the translation of the Old Testament into Greek by 72 elders at the instruction of Eleazar, the high priest. Now, scholars say this book was written between 200 BC and AD 33. That's a long time to write a book. So the Book of Adam and Eve, again, a legendary book or book of legends or fables. There's the martyrdom of Isaiah, again, another legendary or fable type book. There's the Book of One Enoch, which is apocalyptic. This book is cited in Jude chapter 1 verses 14-15 and is the longest of the surviving Jewish pseudepigraphic writings. It's a composite work written by various authors in Aramaic during the last 2 centuries BC. And we read, this quote comes from Metzger: professing to embody a series of revelations granted to Enoch, the seventh from Adam, the anonymous authors discuss such matters as the origin of evil, the angels and their destinies, the nature of Gehenna and paradise, and various astronomical and cosmological fantasies, in other words, stories. So then there's the Testament of the 12 Patriarchs, which is an apocalyptic book, which is a work based on Jacob's words to his sons in Genesis chapter 49. Then there's the Sibylline Oracle, another apocalyptic book. There's the Assumption of Moses, another apocalyptic book. Then there's 2 Enoch, or the Book of the Secrets of Enoch, another apocalyptic book. So this book relates Enoch's travels through the 7 heavens and the divine revelations that he received concerning creation, the history of the world, hell and paradise. Its composition is dated by most scholars to the first half of the first Christian century, in other words, about 50 AD. So then there's 2nd Baruch, or the Syriac Apocalypse of Baruch. Then there's 3 Baruch, or the Greek Apocalypse of Baruch. Then there's the book of 3 Maccabees, which is didactical. This book has nothing to do with the Maccabees, but probably received its name since it claims to describe events during the Maccabean period. The book contains impossibilities and exaggerations and was written shortly or before or during the beginning of the Christian era, probably AD 33 then, something like that. Say AD 33 to 40, something like that. Then there's 4 Maccabees didactical. That is, a didactic is something that's looked back upon, or a retraction. So this work is a Greek philosophical treatise addressed to Jews on the supremacy of reason over the passions. It was written, but that sounds like an interesting book, doesn't it? It was written between 150 BC and AD 70. Again, another long time to write a book. So then there's Perk Aboth, which is didactical. There's the story of Ahikar, which is didactical. Then there's the Psalms of Solomon, which are poetical. There's 18 of these psalms, and they were composed in the middle of the 1st century BC. Now these psalms speak of the coming age when God will send his Messiah of the house of David to purge Jerusalem, subdue Gentile nations, and rule in righteousness. Then there's Psalm 151, which is poetical. And finally, there's number 18, the fragment of a Zadokite work, which is historical. Now we're going to finish the video there, and we'll come back and look at the Apocrypha, which are some books accepted by some, in the next video. So thank you for joining me in this one. There is a lot of detail. I hope you're still here, and I hope you come back for the next video. Thank you very much. Bye bye.